Hello, welcome to video number 7 in our series, Microsoft Certified Professional Developer 4.0 with ASP.NET and C#. This is exam 70-515. The content is owned and created by Ravi Nanganuri, Microsoft MVP, .NETvideos.net. So video number 7, we're going to examine server controls. Server controls will be one of the topics. Will be several areas around controls on the certification exam. So understanding ASP.NET 4.0 server controls, there are a wide variety of server controls that are available. That the idea is they're just reusability components. You basically can take these components like buttons, calendars, file upload controls, all of this logic's been encapsulated. The HTML gets emitted for you. You don't have to recreate the wheel. Now you can certainly add and remove controls that are not in your toolbox already. You can create custom controls. We're going to actually go into that in this video, show how to create and use custom controls. Once you understand kind of the nuances and basics of any control, it's the same repetitive thing. If you can find controls or multiple controls, such as composite controls, that fit your needs, you're going to want to leverage those in your ASP.NET development versus kind of recreating the wheel each time. So it's encapsulated logic. We're going to demonstrate over here. If you look at, I have a simple web form up here where I'm going to demonstrate this file upload control, but you notice my toolbox, it's categorized. There's any number of controls here. We could spend hours and hours going over all the various controls. See our previous video series, Visual Studio 2008, where we went into some of the rich controls, like the wizard control and these various controls. We're going to demonstrate the file upload control, as well as demonstrate how to build a custom control, kind of what's the bare bones metal, what's the bare minimum, how do we configure, register, use, create custom controls. And all of the controls that created are here. Someone created already, and you get the ability to kind of drag and drop and use them, configure them up, wire them up, and then with minimal amount of code kind of get a lot of functionality, so a lot of bang for your buck, versus having to kind of write this stuff from scratch that emits all this HTML. If you don't see the control you want here to use the toolbox, similar to in previous versions of .NET, you can add in various components. So whether it's Silverlight, WPF components you want to bring into the toolbox, not everything is visible straight away. And we'll get back into this when I show you custom controls in this video, and kind of how to get even your own custom controls that you create in the toolbox. But the idea at a very high level, again, is it's encapsulated logic. These controls were created. You get the benefits of reusing these. They're well tested, hopefully, etc. So let's go ahead and show how to use a control. So something, whether it's a button or maybe it's a little more complex, like this file upload control, which would do things like change like the form content, stuff you would have to done manually before the world of controls, maybe if you was doing ASP development and that kind of thing. And I've actually added a button to the form as all, and I've just minimal amount of code here and interacting with the control. So I drag and drop a file upload control, and I'm just checking this, a property. Does it have a file? Has file. If it does, I'm going to do a save as, which is a method which will save it to disk, under C file uploads, and I can go out here, we'll look, and there's nothing. I don't have anything there now. So we're simply going to browse for a file. Now you could tweak the way this looks and feels via the properties. If we see an exception, I'll catch that exception, spit it out into a label. But I just have, a button, a label, which are, web controls unto themselves, very simple. And I've got a little more complex control called the file upload control. And again, I'm taking the advantage of all the functionality that exists in these. I'm not having to create these HTML elements from scratch, in other words, and do all this heavy lifting. I just simply run this. You see, if I click the upload button, it just tells me to choose a file. So some very simple logic here. I've got this browse button by default. I'll browse out to disk, choose a spreadsheet, and this is just the path here to the spreadsheet. And then very simply I can click the upload button, and then we'll save that file on over to disk. So you can also do fancier things with this control, such as save it into a stream and then get that into a byte array to send to a database. So it wouldn't have to necessarily even go to the web server disk here. Something very common though, like uploading files. You don't have to recreate all that logic. It exists in web server controls. Again, see our Visual Studio 2008 series for more depth and more on various controls that are available. I want to spend the majority of this video showing you how to create a custom control. So again, all these standard controls that are here are categorized, and you can get the benefit of just dragging and dropping like I did with the file upload control. Wouldn't it be nice if we can take some logic for whatever that gets reused in our own organizations, encapsulate that into a custom control, and then get the same benefits, being able to drag and drop it from a toolbox or whatever. We can do that. So I'm going to create a new C# web, and I'm going to just choose this project template that exists to web server control, template. Now this could be simply a class library as well. It's going to get reused. It's simply going to be a DLL that gets created that we get to reuse. The ASP.NET Server Control template that I'm choosing here, I'm just showing you this because it actually takes care of a lot of the plumbing underneath the scenes to kind of get us off the ground, the references, etc. For what it takes to create a web server control. So we'll create a very simple control that emits some HTML. And this could be even more elegant, though. I mean, this could be as fancy as you would like. It could be taking advantage of as much functionality as you'd want. So whatever, whether it's a very simple control you create or more complex, the process is the same. I get a few references here. I get a class library here. Notice I'm referencing system.web.ui.webcontrols, and it's simply a class library at this point. It's got a default property it wants to spit out to me. I'm going to actually comment some of this out, take it down to the bare bones metal here. And all I'm doing is overriding render contents and using the HTML text writer to actually output HTML. Now this could be something that's just like some basic HTML text. It could be hyperlinks, any HTML elements, this type of thing. At the bare minimum, this is what you do. You're going to override, and you can expose properties through this control and everything else, but the idea is we're going to send some HTML back. And I got a web application I've added to this particular solution just so we can test the control. I'm just going to show a few ways to actually consume this control. So you can add a reference to this control. I'll just go out to that DLL that got compiled from the control we just created. And again, it was just a class library project, so it compiled into a DLL. And I'll just add a reference to it like you'd add other references. And at this point, you're referencing it. But there's a few ways you're going to have to register this or need to register this. So let's say I wanted to use this on a particular web form. We can go back to our previous video and talk about directives again, because we have another directive we would use here. We would register the tag prefix. We can just give this some arbitrary name here, and with a few keystrokes here, we basically have registered our particular custom control to be used on this web form. Okay, so and this web form would it matter what web form we put this on? This is the one that we got when we created the default web application. I'll go ahead and move this. You're going to give this a namespace. I'm going to go ahead and cut this and move this into a cleaner web form to make this clear. So let's say you added a new web form to your web application project. I'll go ahead and simply do that. And this web form can do nothing more than maybe just test my custom control. So what we can do is simply we're going to create a web form here just for testing custom controls. And again, under the page directive, I'm going to go ahead and use the register and register this custom control. So I've got a namespace here. I've got a tag prefix. I'm also going to put an assembly in. This is well documented on MSD and everywhere else. But basically, there's few steps, and a test custom control is the name of my namespace. Now I get that same IntelliSense down in here, just like I'm using any other type of control. It's the tag prefix test control, server control 1. I'll give it an ID, and I'll just call this, custom control. I'm going to make sure I put the run@server attribute here. And I've now registered this control to be used on this web form. Now, it can be used on this web form. If we was to run this web form, we just expect to see whatever the HTML that this control, whatever this control does, whether it's something very simple, like just spits out text, or whether it's something very complex and elegant that you create that maybe encapsulate a lot of logic or functionality, or something that's somewhere in between, like let's say the file upload control. It's similar to this. So the idea is, we've created this custom control. We just run this now. This web form just spits out the word test. That's all our control does at this point. So what we can do is we can come into the server control itself, and again, you can make this more complex. So down where I'm overriding, and I'm just going to put a hyperlink out here for the HTML. Again, we're using HTML text writer. I'll simply rebuild this now, and just doing nothing else but rebuilding the solution because I'm simply referencing this DLL. We should be able to come in and just rerun at this point and see the change, which at this point just should be a hyperlink instead of some text. And you can imagine, adding lots and lots more functionality, like you just saw with the file upload control. It actually had a button and a text box with it. We could be adding all those other elements in here. So depending what you need the control to do. But this is the process of doing it. So it's a DLL that gets compiled. We referenced it, and we added it in the page up here to register it. This is something you need to know for the exam. So registering it at the page is okay, but let's say I later on decided I'd like to put it in the default page. I'd like to put it in the help about page, or some new web form that gets created. Well, how will I do that? I'm actually I could go and register it each time in all these different areas, the various pages, but that's not real robust, right? When we don't want to be, that's kind of recreating the wheel, and kind of killing the purpose, maybe even having the custom control. So you can also go down into the web config. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out of this page, and if I was to basically just try to rebuild this page, it would compile for me, but the control is no longer registered on this page, and I'm trying to use it down here, so this should throw an error. Actually, if we was able to run this at this point, we didn't do anything else, but we removed that directive where we registered it, you're going to get this parser error here saying, hey, I have no idea where this control is. You've not, you're not supplying me. You didn't properly or appropriately register the control on the page. So as I mentioned, we can come down to the web config, like you can do with many things, and you can kind of consolidate the experience down here in the system.web section. You can come in here, go ahead and scroll over. I'll come to the top of system.web, and there's going to be a pages tag here I need to create, and then just a controls tag for that. And then I can pretty much copy paste in the register directive. There'll be a few subtle changes here. I need to add you're going to do an add tag prefix, and then it's going to be some case sensitivity here, like on the namespace and assembly that didn't exist over on the page side. But the idea here is we've added this tag prefix at the web config level now. We don't have to go for every single page and add this anymore. So new pages that want to take advantage of the control, they can simply just reference it from at this point. It's being centralized like many things in the web config itself. So now if we just rerun this page, voila, the error is gone and we have the hyperlink back. So again, for the exam purposes, you need to know that you can register it at the page level. You can use add tag prefix down in the web config as well and register the control. So know how to do those two items for sure. And to kind of build out the story a little bit further, and again, know the kind of the syntax you would need here to get get it registered. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out one more time and rebuild. And at this point, once again, this would fail. So notice though, as you're developing, if you've got the custom control in the current solution that you're working in, what you can do is you can come over to the toolbox, and if I just went back over to the toolbox, your custom control will show up here by default. This is a temporary area. It's just only where you're as you're doing the design time development on the custom control, you get the benefits that already be in the toolbox for you, and you don't even have to go into the manual steps of registering that. I wanted to show you the nuts and bolts and the plumbing of doing that. You could simply have drag and drop the control. So notice I have one there's an error there for that one, and the one I drag and drop looks just fine on the screen. So I could come in here and fix this up. So you don't even need to, this CC1 tag prefix by default it's giving it. You don't even need to come in here and manually include this register directive. If you're willing to be in the same solution that you're developing the thing, you can just come and simply drag and drop the control on the form. So the idea here is, and of course I could fix this CC1 up or just go ahead and delete that particular control, which I didn't need. It was redundant. So there I have my control. It was just a drag and drop experience out of the toolbox. Well, that's okay, and that works again if you're in the same solution that you happen to be creating the control. That's not likely. One of the benefits, of course, the huge benefits of creating a control, you can reuse it across solutions and across different projects, and you want to put it in the toolbox or distribute it basically. So it becomes and that's one of the big differences between user controls, which we're going to come up in another video, is the fact that you create these to make them easily distributable. So how do we get it in the toolbox? It's another thing that it's an exam topic. It's documented on Microsoft's site. So we've already looked at, you can use it at the page level, the web config level. There's a temporary area in the toolbox. But let's say I want to go ahead and right click, and I'm going to add a tab here into the toolbox. I'm just going to call this custom controls. And all you do to get this in the toolbox for moving forward for all your new development needs is simply to right click, do a browse, and then go out to wherever the DLL happens to be living and add it to your toolbox directly there. And then when you click OK, you're going to see that the server control 1 shows up here. This is your custom control, and you're going to get the benefits of being able to use this control. I went to a completely different .NET solution and project here, not one where I'm actually working or using on the control at all. And you're going to get all the benefits of being able to just drag and drop this control. So notice it's not registered here at all in the page. It's not registered in the web config itself. You just basically drag and drop, and away you go. And you get the abilities to, you expose a lot of useful properties here, like view state, the font, all this stuff by using the toolbox, and all these design time properties that you wouldn't otherwise get. So we'll go further into like user controls and this type of stuff in an upcoming video. But for sure, know the basics of how to use and create custom controls, as well as the built-in web server controls, which are rather straightforward.